Welcome to the ASUN Gameday Podcast, the official podcast of ASUN Sports. And I am Kendra Watkins, joined with William Hall, Mike DeVader. And I know what everybody's thinking. Things look a little different.
That's one way to put it.
Yes, things look a little different. And I know Jordan Griffitt was under the weather. And, three's the magic number. So I didn't want you guys to go by yourself. And usually I'm always here.
Appreciate that. You always so you know how things go.
I'm always in the vicinity.
You're in the building, so
I'm always in the building. So
I think this shows the depth of the ASUN staff. I mean, we went right to the bench. Here you are starting in Jordan's spot, and we didn't even miss a beat. Let's go.
Hey, don't say that just yet because we might miss a few beats. we don't know just yet. We'll see how we get through this. But yeah, next man up. That's the philosophy here. So I didn't want, you guys had so much stuff going on this week. Like you had an interview with Austin Peay's coach coming up. You had an interview with Coach Abdur-Rahim from Kennesaw State. And you guys had a lot of stuff lined up. And I was like, the show must go on. I do not want to miss out on all of this content because, I specialize in content. So I wanted to make sure we had some content to put out this week. So with that being said, let's start. We'll start with women's basketball. Let's break down last week's action.
All right. Well, it was another exciting couple games here last week for women's basketball. Like we continue to say as these conference games roll out, we think we know what the plan is. Then other teams come up and surprise us. I mean, look no further than the Sugar Bears. They go into Kennesaw State, come up with their second road win of the season, 59-55 at Kennesaw State on the road. Nobody really saw that coming. So what is Kennesaw State going to do moving forward this week? How are they going to bounce back? But speaking of bouncing back, FGCU, you might have known they got upset last week. They really didn't like that too much based on their games that they put on the floor last week with 80-plus points in both their matchups against Eastern Kentucky and Bellarmine. Liberty. What do you know? Liberty's going on a 5 straight victory count here. They went into the state of Tennessee and took out Austin Peay and Lipscomb both on the road. And Jacksonville State kind of laying in the weeds, back-to-back victories over UCA and UNA. They were a division champ last year. What are they going to do right now? They have a real good chance to kind of slide their way up as these other teams start to hit skids or losing streaks or tough stretches of their schedule. I think those are 4 keys for women's basketball over the last week.
So I know that they beat them last week. You mentioned Liberty. How close is the gap at the top to you now? I mean, you got a 3-way tie at number 2 right now, and then you got FGCU sitting at 8-1.
Well, I think it's almost interchangeable right now underneath FGCU. I think FGCU, the window has closed a little bit based on what we saw last week with their loss in the previous week, and then they came back in a big way. Eastern Kentucky was thought to be one of the teams that could score with them, but they got really almost punched in the mouth in the first quarter, first half. They didn't respond very well. So FGCU kind of came out with a vengeance like we thought they would coming off that defeat. So that was kind of a little bad luck for EKU running into that buzzsaw because you knew they were going to bounce back. But I really think the spots 3 through 6, I mean, you can't really – it's not the release of the in-depth analysis of our power rankings just yet, but those 7-2 teams, Eastern Kentucky still might have a chance to get back in there. They're got a tough week coming up, but I think the top 4 teams, especially the bottom 3 of that group, they could really start to separate themselves.
I mean, I was just assuming Liberty was at the top, so I was talking about the gap between FGCU and Liberty. I wasn't even considering Austin Peay and Lipscomb in that because I feel like they kind of proved – I mean, their last couple of games, they beat FGCU, they beat Austin Peay, they beat Lipscomb.
Well, if you look at the history of what this league has been, and particularly in the years that I've been here now in my second year, Liberty's back where they're comfortable, and they're in number 2 spot, battling for the top of the league with FGCU, and those 2 teams are 1-2, and based on how they're playing, they might stay there. It just depends on if they can stay consistent because Liberty right now is playing good basketball.
And again, it's a tie. I get it. The second place is a 3-way tie, and then you've got EKU, and I think Liberty and EKU, they got a game a couple weeks from now think they only get one that one matchup. So, all right, that's fair enough. Just throwing it out there, just a little curious. I know you always mention the gap. I know there's always FGCU, and then there's a gap. So we kind of always look at how big is the gap, how small is the gap, is anybody tightening the window up. But
I think it's a little dangerous to kind of look behind you as well, because if FGCU does that and sees how hot these other teams are, that could hurt them. So they need to focus on themselves, because
they only give you one. I told you, Mike. They only give you one.
I know
you got
that.
the one you get from them already. So I
know that. So the only way that they're going to be able to, I guess, get chased down is somebody's going to have to do the unthinkable right now and give them that second loss. I mean, you can't even say they're going to have 3, because they don't even want to have 2 in their whole history. So I don't know. FGCU seemed focused, and we'll just see what happens the rest of the way, as we're almost halfway in women's basketball.
And I know just listening to last week's pod, like I was really intrigued by this last weekend's match between them and Bellarmine, because I know last week you guys wanted to give all of the hardware to Gracie Merkel. So I was loving, styles make fights. So
yeah.
I wanted to see what was going to happen, because usually with FGCU, they like to get out and run. So I wanted to see how they were going to work with size, and maybe if Bellarmine slowed the game down. Mm-hmm. And Gracie Merkel, she's a problem.
She's still a problem. I mean, they figured it out, but she's still there. I mean, it does like all the hard work going to her. But I still think that, it was interesting seeing that. I mean, we wanted to see what she would do against them. So yeah, that was it's good to see. I mean, I think Bellarmine still has as a team, got to do a little bit more, but I think she's still a problem.
Well, I think it's a lot harder to do than just say that we need to make other people beat us if we're looking at Bellarmine. But I mean, FGCU came up with a good plan, and they made that happen, and that's why, unfortunately, pretty quick, it didn't really work out for her, because once they decided that, I don't care what happens, we're going to do our best to make sure that she has to pass the ball, or we try to block her from getting any touches on the offensive end. I mean, I don't think Bellarmine had any answers for that, because FGCU came up with a good plan. I think she was 0 for 3 from the field. I mean, she shoots like 15 times a game.
Yeah.
She only had 3 shots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great defense by Coach Smesko there in the FGCU. And I don't know how many teams can replicate that throughout the league, but that's definitely a blueprint for how to try to stop her.
Yeah. And I know just seeing on the perimeter, just watching Tashara Morehouse and watching Eliza Winston, like those, like it's like poetry in motion. Like I just like watching it, because I love when they get down in the defensive stand. Like stance, nothing is safe. Like you think you're bringing the ball up court, like you don't want to take too many dribbles. You got to pull it up and pass it off. So
yeah,
I love watching them play. Any other takeaways, or should we go over to men's basketball?
I think we're looking good on the women's side. It's time for a little men's basketball
All
action.
right, men's basketball. Go ahead, William. Take center stage.
Center stage. I mean, Kennesaw State. I think you got to mention them when you talk about men's basketball right now. Austin P, Lipscomb both came into the convo last week. KSU handled business. I think they're a 7-game win streak at 10-0 at home this season. It's still a place you don't want to go and play right now, because they in that winning streak is even longer if you go back to last season. So they're still tough to play on their home court. And Liberty, not to be outdone, they're still there. So I don't want anybody thinking that nobody's forgetting about Liberty. They're right there at the top with them. They had FGCU and Stetson. They got wins at home as well last week, so they're keeping pace for that 2-team tie that we still have at the top of the standings right now. We're halfway through men's basketball conference play, so I mean it's looking like a race between KSU and Liberty right now at the top, clearly, and just also good weeks from also at home, which is, I think, I'm ready to see who's going to be the team that's going to be a great road team. But North Alabama was at home. They got wins against Jacksonville and North Florida pretty handedly. I mean, that was that high-scoring game from Daniel Ortiz against UNF. And then Queens at home. They also played the Eagles and the Hatters. They got 2 good wins on their home floor, where they've been, pretty tough to handle as well in Curry Arena this season. So I think those were my standouts, is just those home teams staying hot at home and just kind of looking at things, we've got a conversation coming up with Coach Amir from KSU talking about them going on the road. I think, they've been so strong at home. Their next 3 are on the road. So it's just seeing who's going to be that team that's like, okay, they're coming here. They're bringing that same energy that they've got on their home floor. And when you're traveling with it, that's who's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was going to touch on as well. I know we're going to feature that interview here shortly, but just when you look at their last 2 months of basketball, the teams that they played non-conference to prepare for the conference start and to have the kind of success that they had both in non-conference and right now, and you look in the last 2 months, I mean, there's not very many losses on that.
They lost 3 games in the last 2 months. They
beat
2 ranked opponents and a near half-court shot from no Florida. From the logo. I mean, that's what took them down. 2 top 25 teams and a shot that, how often does that fall? Amazing shot. Not taking nothing away from the shot. The shot, it was a wonderful ending to the game. But, I mean, you look at that in the months of December and January, they've only lost 3 times. So, I mean, they deserve any respect they're getting or not. They've earned it.
Yeah, and I mean, we were at that Kennesaw State game. So between Lipscomb, I believe it was Faculty and Staff Appreciation Day, and the fans are showing up.
They're showing up.
Yeah, the Convocation Center was rocking. Like,
yeah,
I seen over in the student section, they had like the banana.
Yeah,
the banana guy. But the guy was there giving handshakes and all the love. I was like, man. I was like, yeah. Like I was sitting back doing some work, and I just seen everybody just. The crowd was really into it, so I was really enjoying the atmosphere, really enjoying the vibe. And speaking on that, North Alabama right now.
I mean, that's one of my biggest overall takeaways from the week. Is North Alabama men's basketball. They've got 4 in a row here. I mean, they're looking like a team. I mean, and even they had the win against Ole Miss. I mean, it's not. To me, just watching them throughout the year, I'm not like surprised that they're doing well. I was kind of waiting for them to pick up the pace in conference play because non-conference North Alabama was one of the best teams in non-conference. So that team is good, and and they're starting to put it together. It's kind of right when you want to start getting it going. We're in February. No better time to get hot right now. I mean, you're halfway through. You're right there in the thick of it. Potentially want to play, get a little bit higher, maybe get somebody to have to come to Florence and play you in Flowers Hall. But yeah, UNA is hot right now. And another thing that I took away was just the scoring. Speaking of UNA, Ortiz had 32 on Saturday with 10 made threes against North Florida. Speaking of North Florida, Carter Henderson back-to-back 30-point games. Like, I mean, he was on fire this weekend. The team didn't win, but he was dropping buckets, 2 30-point games back-to-back. That's amazing. He's been scoring like that all season, so he's dropping them. And on the women's side, Emma Hess had 28. Liberty's Emma Hess. Brisker Queens had 28, then 24. So just looking at it, we got a lot of people that can light the scoreboard up. So that's why we're having exciting games here. And I'm just ready for this. It's tournament time. I'm getting to the point where it's I don't want to skip the month of February because it's an important month.
No, it's that.
But it's like
everything's about to happen.
Right. It's coming.
Yeah, just watching like some of the games and just getting prepared going into ASUN Madness.
Yeah,
and just watching like Emma Hess, she hit the shot.
Yeah,
just left it up.
Just left it up there. Yeah, you left it up there.
Yeah. You notice ever since she did that.
Yes,
she's been on fire.
Yes, she's been on fire. Like they were talking about her. Like we were doing the plays of the week. They were talking about the plays of the week, and I was like. Just looking at it, they were like, yo, you can't leave her alone. Pulled it in her face. I was like, oh, gosh. She's hot.
Yeah.
You can't do anything with that. She's just hot. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. And just before we get into our interviews, any takeaways, anything that you guys wanted to acknowledge just going into the break as far as women's basketball?
Well, I think just a general statement for both sides. This is the month where we find out if teams have peaked too early. Okay. Or like you said, if they're going to hit their stride right at the right time going into postseason play, because you really do have to find that sweet spot of are we doing everything that we're supposed to do right at the right time? Because if you get 2 weeks out and then all of a sudden things fall apart, your season could be done real quick. So want to see which teams are able to put it together at the right time, get some momentum towards the end of the season here as we go into February. And also with these points, man, all I can think about is these coaches just, guard him. Why is he open? Like,
yeah.
these offensive players that we have on both sides right now, they really don't care who's on them and what the coaches are saying on the other end. Is just give me the ball, heat check, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's been really exciting to see. And man, I can't get over some of these matchups that we have coming up next, because somebody's going to be up in the standings that probably shouldn't be there, and it's going to be really exciting.
You got to give me. What do you mean? You got to give me more. When you say somebody's gonna be up in the standings, it shouldn't be there.
Well,
you can't. You earn your spot in the standings.
Yeah, so, just give me a little bit more.
I mean, somebody could shoot 22% and lose a game they're not supposed to. I mean, I know it's not necessarily that's happened, but I know the men's side has had some upsets that have been pretty eye opening.
Yeah,
it can happen on either side.
Yeah, you get that game and it's like, oh, that's what they're doing to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I did that a couple times last week. I looked at the scoreboard and was like, oh, okay, wow, oh, they're not playing. All right. Hey, you want to be taken seriously? It's there for you. And statement making time.
Got you. On the men's side, any takeaways?
Not just outside of, like I said, North Alabama and just the scoring on both sides, but UNA. That was the scores. I'm just gonna put it out there. Those were the scores I was looking at this week, Thursday, and I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. And then Saturday, I was like, oh, UNA, oh, this is what they're doing. Okay. And Ortiz is okay. That's 10. I mean, he was one off from our ASUN record of hitting threes in the game, so it's impressive.
Very much so.
And real quick before we move on, I had another thought that we normally banter a little bit like this with Jordan, but you said that at the Kennesaw game you saw a banana in the stands, right?
We saw a banana in the stands.
So I had heard that both of you were at the game, but did you see the banana and William at the same time? That's what I need to know. Did you see both of them together at the same time during that game?
Ooh, this is pretty different. I don't know where we're going, but I seen a banana. The banana was in the student section. I didn't see William until after the game, because William was big time and he was down in press row. I just took my spot up in the stands.
He wasn't in the student section. We sure that wasn't him?
What? That wasn't William in the student section. That was not William in the student section. The banana's famous. I've seen the banana like countless times.
I mean, that's what they do. And Mike's just trying to.
Yeah, I was gonna say the banana's up there with like Jerry's Jokers over at Liberty. Like
you saw him in the concourse, so you were like, yeah, let me.
I can do that.
That's silly. Well, we're going to be coming up after the break, but coming up after the break, we have Kennesaw State's head men's basketball coach, Coach Abdur-Rahim, or Amir Abdur-Rahim. And we'll come back and we'll have more on the ASUN Gameday Podcast.
Are you ready for the ASUN Championship? Here's everything you need to know as we get closer to the postseason. Let's break it down by the numbers. The top 10 teams earn their way into the tournament. Action begins with 2 first-round matchups between seeds 7 through 10. All 9 of the tournament games take place on campus sites with the higher seeds hosting, which gives you the perfect opportunity to cheer on your squad. From February 27th to March 5th, it's ASUN Madness. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to the ASUN Gameday Podcast. Hall Mike DeVader here with Kennesaw State men's basketball head coach Amir Abdur-Rahim. Coach, how's it going?
Man, it's going good, man. It's going good. Just sitting over here watching a little film, getting prepared. It never stops. So that's the best part about what we do.
Oh, yeah. So just looking at the season, I know this whole thing takes, trust from your administration, support of your fans, buy-in from your student athletes, your staff and everything. But just speak to me about how it felt when you set that Division I program record for wins here. I mean, I know trust the process is thrown around in sports for a lot of things, but I think even with my time here at the ASUN, watching the growth of the KSU men's program, it's trusting the process. I mean, you've just grown, and here you are now as this team at the top of the standing. So talk to me about that change over the past few years and how you're feeling when that happened.
Yeah, like you said, William, it's been a grind, but my father, he used to always tell us, anything worth building, anything worth sustaining and having, right? Like you've got to put real love into it, real commitment into it. And so when we got the job here, that was our goal. It really was. And, coming from a 1-win program, 3 years ago to sitting at 17 wins right now. I'm more excited for the university. I'm more excited for our players, the administration. Like you mentioned, I'm just really excited for them, as a coach and somebody who's been a part of winning before. I don't allow myself to really get caught up in, the success at the time. I'm sure after the season, I'll have a chance to reflect and really enjoy, what we've been able to do, or what we were able to do this year. But right now, to be honest, I'm more excited for the university, but I'm more focused on like just getting better. There's still a ton of basketball left to be played in a really, really, really good ASUN, and so when we set that record, I got a text from my President Schwag, and she congratulated me, but I congratulated her, because she's someone who's been at Kennesaw State for 19 years, going on 20 years now. And for her to have the opportunity to be the president, right, after going through, she was provost, she held a number of hats. It was the same as building our program. And so I was happy for her. I was happy for our administration, and it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. And Coach, kind of looking at that rebuilding process that you have going on right now, what's the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome to get that thing rolling? And kind of right now, as things are playing out, what's the biggest reward that you see out there?
Well, I thought the biggest obstacle at the time was just getting people to see how special Kennesaw State could be, Mike, to be honest. Like, again, I'm from here, high school, 15 minutes away from here at Wheeler High School. And so I saw how much it had grown, and how much, just how special a place it could be. But, man, when you're an up-and-coming university, up-and-coming department, and growing at the rate we were growing, the biggest thing was getting people to campus to see that, right? The biggest reward, though, the day when we got the job, we said we wanted to be a program that would sustain, not just be a one-hit wonder, not have a good year and then 4 years later, man, you're back in the dumps or whatever it is. And I think the way we built it, going from 1 win to 5 wins, 13, and now currently sitting at 17 with a little under a month to play. The biggest reward is just being able to do it with the people we've done it with, to retain, our core group of guys in a transfer portal age where it's really rare to do it with the staff that we've done it with. It's a testament to the people we have in our program. And we said that from day one, when we talked about wanting to have a program that's sustained, we wanted to have an environment where people could come and thrive. And that's the thing I feel like we've been able to do and hold on to over these 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think that sustainability that you talked about was very evident by, your lineup that you brought, that starting lineup, bringing that back, the only team to return your core starting, but also the depth that you have, even coming off the bench. So talk to me about that depth that you have and that confidence you have and the people that you got, your reserves coming in, still keeping that same pressure on and still being able to keep that high level of play going. Yeah,
again, it goes back to the people, and that's a testament to our guys. It's a really close-knit group of guys, and we've given them examples. You could go back to the Spurs. We've used the Warriors. Heck, we even used the Florida Gators the year they won back-to-back national championships. And we talked to those guys about playing for each other, being there for each other. And, I'll tell you a guy on our team, and I think if I had to give someone the MVP, most valuable player of our team today, I'd probably say it was Spencer Rogers. People might look at me like, man, what are you talking about? You got Chris Youngblood, you got Terrell Burden. But I would probably say it was Spencer Rogers, because we're talking about a guy 2 years ago who was second in the ASUN in scoring. And his role has changed a little bit. He's still as important to us today as he was back then. But we're talking about a guy that has, like, he's a starter. Like, he could be a starter, but just kind of where our team is, where we, the chemistry and continuity we have, like going back to that depth you're talking about. He's coming off the bench, still playing a good number of minutes, but he could easily be a guy that's that would be caught up in himself, and especially in this day and age, right? Like me, he could be a guy that's easily caught up in himself, but man, that dude comes to practice every day. He's about winning. He's about the team. And he's done an unbelievable job of leading for us. And so when you talk about that depth, a coach can have as much talent as he wants, but to get the guys to buy in and know that no matter what their role is, it's important, that's a testament to them.
Mm-hmm. And looking at your non-conference schedule and how it's kind of played into this role here, starting conference play on a hot streak, can you talk a little bit about what those experiences, especially playing in some really impressive environments, and what that caused your team to overcome, and what did you see in that non-conference slate that's prepared you for conference play?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. That we talk about the elements, right, all the time. The road gives you different elements, man, that just home gives you different elements. At home, you got people pulling at you. You got, whether it's your girlfriends, you got class, you got family, people wanting tickets or whatever it is. But on the road gives you, man, different elements. It gives you an environment that you're not used to. It gives you a bed that you're sleeping in that's not your bed. You're not really familiar with it. And so going into those different environments, like we talk to the guys, hey, there's a method. There was a method to the madness. It was a little hard to get home games this year. Our schedule before had been done in end of May, early June, because everybody wanted to play us. When we were building, but bringing 5 starters back, 7 of our top 8, it was a little harder to come by home games. And so as a staff, we sat down and said, okay, look, let's not just play games to play games. Let's try to get better, and we'll give that message to the guys. So going to places like Florida, VCU, Assembly Hall at Indiana, San Diego State, even the Mercers, the Charleston Southerns, going to play the MTE at App State. It was all to get us to a point where we learned how to win on the road. It wasn't necessarily about the result in the non-conference. I thought we were really fortunate to come out. I think we were 8-5 coming into 8-5 coming into conference play. But it was more about just trying to get better and learn how to win on the road. And so when you go to a place like VCU with an environment like they have and have a chance to win the game, we didn't pull it out, but we were able to learn from that game. We got better from that game. You go to a place like Florida, the second game of the year, and I think Ty Golden does one of the best jobs in the country, man. But to go into that environment and not be overwhelmed by the elements, not be overwhelmed by the fact that it's an SEC school, and compete the way we did. We talk about no moral victories in our program, but we were able to get better from that game. And so as we went through that non-conference schedule, even ending in Indiana, people thought we were probably crazy for going up to Assembly Hall on December 23rd, but man, to go up there and play and lead most of that game. Again, we didn't pull it out, but we got better from it. We learned about ourselves. We learned that, we can go into some different places, and as long as we're connected and our chemistry and our bond is strong, man, I think we can play, with anybody in the country. We just got to stay humble, stay hungry, and focus on each other.
Yeah. That focus, I think, is important right now. It's closing out, here in February. So I know, from our office, I know probably the fan bases, everybody's kind of looking at February 16th, that game between Liberty and Kennesaw State. But I know your focus is here and now. And speaking of going on the road, you're going on the road for your next 3. This week, you've got a pretty tough test on the road at defending champion Bellarmine, at an EKU team that's been some tough games between you two over the last couple of years. So talk to me about the challenge this week with those 2 road matchups coming up.
William, I say this, and not to, I know everybody else may be talking about that, but my Twitter location is where my feet are. All right. We talk about that in our program a lot. Be where your feet are. And we have really, really strong, high character dudes. Terrell Burton, I thought he had a great message to the team yesterday about staying focused on today, right? We got on Thursday, we play at Bellarmine, but we're focused on today, like Tuesday, January 31st, and getting better today. And that's not, I promise you, man, it's not coach speak. It's not trying to not worry about the distraction of what people will talk about. We know where that is, and we talked about it for the last 2 weeks of keeping our headphones on, blocking out the outside noise, and staying focused on us. So, these next 3 games starting on Thursday, some people will say, hey, we'll find out a lot about ourselves. I think we know about ourselves, but we have to stay strong and stay focused on that connection that we talked about, staying focused on us, because again, going on the road to a really good Bellarmine team, really good EKU team, and a really good Jacksonville State team, we've got to be at our best. I don't want to sound like I'm downplaying anything that we've done, but the truth of it is that none of it matters right now other than getting better. What's done is done. It's the old quote, if what you did yesterday seems big, you hadn't done anything today. And so we're focused on today. We're focused on getting better. And tomorrow to be about February 1st and getting better February 1st.
Yeah, Coach, I think you kind of took my question away from me. I was going to kind of ask what it's going to take for you to finish the season strong and keep focused on what it's going to take game by game to continue this journey down the road. But
well, no, because Mike, I'll tell you this. I think at this point in time, every coach in the country, you're trying to figure out how to maximize your team, right? And I asked the guys a simple question yesterday, and it's really not about X's and O's. It's not about execution or anything like that. I literally asked them, I said, are our relationships intact? All right. Meaning the things that you guys set out to do, that you talked about as a team, right? Have you talked about those goals? Are we in a place where, we're still allowing ourselves to be held accountable? Is there a fear of conflict in our program right now that needs to be addressed? And I just said, hey, look, I can't answer that for you. This has become a player-led program, a player-driven program, and they have to have those conversations amongst themselves to make sure that those relationships are intact. I'll do my job, my staff and I will do the job of managing it, but they have to make sure that those relationships are intact. So when adversity does come, because it comes, it's going to come. Right? It's going to come. It showed itself even in the first 10 games. But in those first 10 games, man, these guys have done a great job of allowing themselves to be held accountable. They haven't had a fear of conflict. And because of that, we've been able to, not to go against what you said, William, about the hot start, but I think our start has been more consistent than hot. Right. And that's what we want to be. We don't want to be a hot team. We want to be consistent in our habits. We want to be consistent in our approach. We want to be consistent in our relationships. And so to answer your question, Mike, that's what it's about over this next, 25 days or 28 days until we, get to the ASUN tournament. It's about our relationships. Are they intact? Will we be able to do the small things? Will we have attention to the details in order to, maintain that consistency that we've had?
Great. Thank you, Coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Coach. We appreciate your time. Congratulations on the success you've already had so far this season. Wishing you the best throughout the rest of the season. I know the job's not done. So, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
All right, welcome back, ASUN Gameday Podcast. I'm joined here with Mike DeVader, William Hall, Kendrell Watkins, filling in for Jordan Griffitt. He's out, so I'm trying to carry a little bit.
So far, so good.
Okay, we still rocking. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Coming back from my interview with Coach Amir Abdur-Rahim, what were some of you guys takeaways? Because I know you guys had a chance to speak to him. What are you guys taking away going into this week?
I think the biggest thing is we did. I did mention to him about going on the road. They've been so strong at home. And one thing that stood out to me was that he said that his team, they want to be consistent, not hot. Mm-hmm. And I think that's and I think I mentioned that they were playing it off the hot start, and he was like, no offense, but we don't want to be hot. We want to be consistent, because I guess if you hot, you can cool off. So I get it. And I think that's just it kind of just reflects their team. They're just consistent. Their lineup, the depth, everything is consistent. They, I think we mentioned Jordan and I talked a couple of weeks ago, might have been last week, about how they don't have that one guy that you just can key on and say if he's not having a good game, they're all doing it at us. So there's nobody who's scoring like 25 points or something like that. They're just consistent. Like early in the game against Lipscomb on Saturday, like everybody who we got on the court at one point in time, everybody had scored. So that consistency was the biggest thing that I got that from him. Talking to him, like that's their thing, and you see it. It's reflected with their play on the court.
Well, and unfortunately, I don't get to interact with the coaches as much on the men's side, being the women's contact. But I thought it was really cool with how, of course, yeah, we did talk about non-conference and going to these big environments, learning how to play on the road, taking it to your home court and understanding how to play. But I really thought it was really cool when he thought back of the plan that he wanted to put in place at Kennesaw State to try to rebuild the culture and build his own type of program, and the work that it's done and the appreciation that he has for all the staff, all the players, all the administration, and then vice versa. With them breaking records right now on the basketball court, he sees how appreciative everybody is. The culture has brought everybody to the games now. The people that work there are so excited to talk about it, to be there, to be a part of it. But he's saying thank you to everybody. No, don't thank me, thank you. And just how everybody's such a big family and they want to be accountable and trust each other and understand that they're in it together. And, I'd love to play for a coach like that.
Yeah, we talked a couple of weeks about that game against UNF, how they came out at halftime and just kind of took it to them in the second half. We were talking about, like, what do you say in the locker room to get them to come out? I mean, I kind of want to come out in the second half of this podcast and just kind of wreck shop like KSU. I'm motivated, I feel better.
Yeah, and just being at the game, I know one thing that I really liked is just he goes up in the student section, makes sure that he thanks everyone for coming out, shake hands. I've seen it in a lot of the clips, so I think that's really awesome because it makes an engaging environment and it makes the fans feel appreciated for coming out and making noise. So I really like that. But going into games of the week, I want to start, William, men's basketball, since we're already on the topic. What do you have for game of the week?
Well, my game of the week this week, spoiler alert, it's Kennesaw State. KSU is actually the game that they're going to play on Saturday. They're going on the road to play Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is right there. I mean, we were talking about kind of I think right now there's kind of like a big three, I guess you could say, in my mind. I mean, I think Liberty and KSU are clearly 1 and 2. And then EKU is right there. That's reflected in the standings, obviously. But I think that on that floor, that's where they took out Liberty a couple of weeks ago. The first time EKU and KSU played this season in the Convocation Center, of course, KSU won because they're undefeated there. It's a 4-point game. Some EKU players didn't shoot as well as they normally do. So, it's interesting. That was a ASUN championship game last season in the first round, the first postseason game hosted by KSU. In the regular season, the time they played in Kentucky, that was a triple overtime game. So I think this is one that's really standing out. A good test on the road for KSU again. Obviously, it's the second test because they're going to play the defending champion Bellarmine on Thursday. So that's going to be their first test. And they got another tough one. So that's a tough road trip for the Owls. So just seeing what they can do on the road, taking that energy like we talked to coach about, taking it on the road, and then on the other side from EKU, you kind of you want this. You this team that's hot. They got a lot of attention. You get a win against KSU, you jump right back up there. They are consistent. EKU is consistent. You go against this team that's consistent. So, you got to bring your consistency out.
Not high.
Consistent. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I got to get my word right. I'm going
Coach made it very clear about that.
Yeah, see, and I just go to hot. That's why I'm not a coach. Because I just say stuff like hot. And they're playing, they're playing good.
You want to be hot,
But
I go to Kroger, I want my sandwich hot.
Do you want your sandwich consistent?
But I want to consistently.
But see, that's where you go back though.
Yes,
that's why you go back. The first time it's hot, The second time you don't want to be cold because then it's not consistent.
Yeah.
So I think you have the sample size has to be. There we go. Consistent. There we go. That's my game of the week. Kennesaw State at Eastern Kentucky.
All right. And Mike, what we have over at women's basketball?
All right. Well, believe it or not, we're going to stay in the same arena here. So
Okay.
on Saturday, Austin P hits the road for a couple games this week, but they go to Eastern Kentucky. And that's my game of the week where we're going to feature for women's basketball this week. Coming up here in a few minutes, we're going to talk to Brittany Young, the head coach of Austin P, kind of get some ideas about how things have gone in the ASUN for them and what they're looking ahead to. And one of those things is coming out on the road here with a couple victories. And Austin P has to play Bellarmine first on Thursday night here, and Eastern Kentucky has a matchup against Lipscomb. But depending on how those two games are going, with the tie that we have in second place with the three-way tie, Austin P and Eastern Kentucky, one of those two teams could potentially put themselves in almost another area of the standings compared to the other one. So basically, in a broader sense, I'm looking at one of these teams potentially could put the other in a bad spot, looking for a home game, especially in the postseason, but maybe even putting that other team on a little bit of a skid. Because we got some tough games coming up for both of them, and Eastern Kentucky did bounce back after the poor game against FGCU, but that Austin P Eastern Kentucky matchup is really interesting to me because I don't want to get too much into our interview before we play it, but the offensive power that Eastern Kentucky brings, with Antoinette Walker being the leading scorer in ASUN, versus the defensive mindset of what Austin P really is all about under Coach Young. They did a big feature on their webpage, and everybody can go there and check it out, about if they hold teams under 50 points, they're like 21-1 under Coach Young in her career, 10-0 this season. And 60 points, they also have a very good record, so it's all about defense for them. And really, when it gets down to simple brass tacks of this game, I want to see it, like you said earlier, clashes make fights. Austin Peay's defense, I want to see what they do to Eastern Kentucky and if they can answer that question.
I mean, it's interesting. And one thing I do like about your game of the week, just because, Austin Peay, Eastern Kentucky, like right now we have a three-way tie for second place between Liberty, Austin Peay, and Lipscomb. And right there at right now, fifth, Eastern Kentucky. So we have potentially a matchup that can determine who gets to host a home game. So I feel like that's something that just going into this matchup, like it's just things to consider.
And of course, I don't necessarily think it's a must-win for either team. However, if you get down the schedule and you have a couple bad games, I hope not. Obviously, we want all of our teams to play well, but they could really look at this game as a pivot point on their season. Be like, man, we went on the road and we got this win. Or Eastern Kentucky they were one of the teams we were looking up at. Now we just leapfrog them because we played one of our best games.
That is true, man. I know Austin Peay winning 6 of their last 7. Like they've been doing work in the conference. And I know Eastern Kentucky, just coming into the season or coming into conference play, we were just like, look out for Eastern Kentucky. And, just getting adjusted. They've had some pitfalls. They've beat some teams. So they've been going a little up and down. But right now, at 6-3 in the conference, I'm very interested to see what they do just coming into the game of the week. So, William, what are some of your thoughts?
I think that's a great game. Austin Peay is playing well. Eastern Kentucky is right there. Like Mike said, you got one of the front runners for Player of the Year on that Colonel's team. So, I'm interested in seeing that matchup. And like both of you laid out, that's pivotal to the seeding and where things could fall out once we get closer to tournament time, just to see. This is one of those games you look back and you're like, oh, that changed some things. That's a tiebreaker there, that head-to-head matchup. So you always want to take those, and I think that's a good segue into our conversation we had with Austin Peay's head coach, Brittany Young. Just hearing about that mindset of Austin Peay in their first season in the conference. I think they're doing things obviously that are good, and they're going in the right direction with their transition first year in the league. But just was a great conversation we had with her.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take a break. we're going to come back. We're going to get into that interview with head coach Brittany Young, Austin P. And we'll come back and we'll get back into the infamous power rankings, as well as getting into our ASUN preview. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm very interested to see what you guys break down your power rankings that you released after last week's competition. So we'll be back.
Championship time is right around the corner, so let's take a look at all of the facts of ASUN postseason play. Let's break it down by the numbers. The top 10 teams earn their way into the tournament. Action begins with 2 first-round matchups between seeds 7 through 10. All 9 of the tournament games take place on campus sites, with the higher seeds hosting, which means you can go watch your favorite team. From March 4th to March 11th, it's ASUN Madness. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back to the ASUN Gameday Podcast. I'm Mike DeVader, and right now we're joined by Austin P head coach Brittany Young. Coach, how you doing?
Man, doing great today, guys. A little snow here in Clarksville, but that's not going to stop us from getting to work. So we'll have practice in about 30 minutes here.
Well, speaking about getting to work, talk about what you guys have gone through this year and how that transition to the ASUN has been, and how's that treating your team so far?
Yes, I mean, I think it's been just a tough year overall. When we start off with the non-conference season, and we just had a hard time getting everyone healthy. So because of that, just a lot of ups and downs throughout non-conference. We were able to kind of go home for Christmas break and regroup a little bit. And I think we just came back with a renewed mindset. And since that time, have been playing, some of our better basketball of the year. Still haven't gotten to a point where we've peaked quite yet. Still a lot of areas to improve, but just so proud of our team and the way they're coming out and competing every night.
Well, yeah, 7-2 start here to conference play. So you guys have been playing well. You had a 5-game winning streak going on there. So what do you think that recharge that you said you were able to make over the break? Where was the focus shifted, and how do you feel that helped you get off to this great start to conference play, playing these ASUN opponents?
Yes, I mean, that's a really good question. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint exactly one thing that led to the change. I think for us, I sat down with each player one-on-one when they got back on the 27th. And, we just clearly defined roles. We clearly talked about, where each player was currently. And I think it just came down to a decision by each of those young ladies to buy into playing a certain style of basketball. And I think it's tough when you have players that come from a lot of different places, and it's not like they're freshmen. Our team is comprised of mostly transfers. So, some of that is just really changing the mindset of things that were maybe learned previously at other institutions. And having everyone on one accord. And I think we just kind of bought in, and we're sacrificing some individual things for team success. And anytime you do that, good things are possible.
And Coach, you talked a little bit ago about your obstacles you kind of had to overcome so far this year, but kind of looking to where you are now compared to then, what have you learned about your team so far about midway through conference play?
Yeah, I learned that we're a resilient bunch. I learned that we have some grit. We have some toughness. And there were some times in the non-conference season, we talk a lot about boxing comparisons, right? So, certain games are like heavyweight fights. And, I told them, you want to be a heavyweight fighter, you don't want to be a welterweight. You got to be able to take some hits as well. So for us, it's just being able to understand that adversity is going to come. How do you respond in those adverse moments, whether on the court or off the court? And that's what I learned about our group, because we had some times where we took some punches in the non-conference. We didn't punch back, and we didn't like how that felt. And I think that, just seeing my team, even in losses, being honest, even in some losses this conference season, I see the grit and the determination, and that's needed for us to accomplish the goals we're looking, to achieve.
You mentioned grit, you mentioned determination, that toughness. I think all those things you got to talk about when you're thinking about Austin P women's basketball. It's your defense. Right now, you're leading in conference play in points allowed, your opponent field goal percentage. So in your mind, when you're trying to translate that to your student athletes, that defensive mindset, what are your keys when you're trying to preach your defense?
Yes, again, that was part of the return from Christmas. getting on one page. Defense was a big part of all those one-on-one meetings, and understanding that for us to do the things we want to do, every member of our team has to buy into playing and competing hard on that defensive end of the floor, because that's an effort thing. That's controllable, whether your shots are falling, not falling. Man, we can control how hard we're competing on that end of the floor. So, we've come into conference play, and we have some young ladies that really take great pride in it. When you talk about young ladies like Taya Douglas and Anala Nelson, every night they're getting the other team's best wing or best combo or best forward. And they take great pride in really locking into the game plan and defending those players at a high level. So, I think it's just part of our identity. We met yesterday as a team because it's kind of like the halfway point in the conference regular season. And I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. I asked the question again, what do you feel like our identity is right now? And, it was just overwhelming. Defense, coach, defense. We set the tone with our defense. That's who we are.
And you touched on this a little bit just now with how strong-minded you are towards the defensive end. You guys just did a feature story on what it means to get to certain points or hold teams to a certain number of points and what your record is during that time frame. But for those that don't know enough about Austin Peay, kind of talk about what your mentality is, or maybe some core values that you brought to the program that are really important to you right now as we move forward in 2022, 23.
Yes. Well, we sit down with our young ladies, even in the recruiting process. We talk about many of the things that I've already, even named in this conversation so far. When we talk about the sacrifice and the toughness, the togetherness, those are things that, have been staples of our program since I arrived here at Austin Peay, even last year. And a lot of times, and I've learned this from myself personally, and definitely as a second year head coach, a lot of times, like, we ask for those things or want those things, and we forget that, man, it's built a lot through, trial and testing and enduring some situations that don't feel so great. That's when you find out who you are. And, if you would have asked us, honestly, back in November, after Thanksgiving, we had just finished a tough tournament where we weren't playing our best basketball and we were 500. You would ask us if we were in the position we were in right now, there could have been some doubt. But again, I think just sticking to those values and trusting the process of coming in and working every single day to really just improve and live those values, those core values. That's why you see the results, or some of the results that we're seeing now.
We're definitely seeing good results now. Like I said, you're 7-2 in conference play. I think you're three-way tie for second in the standings right now, about halfway through. So great start to the season. We wish you the best the rest of the way.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank y'all. Y'all caused a stir here in Clarksville, Tennessee last week. We love it. We love it, guys.
I wasn't gonna touch it, but Mike, I don't know. You gotta.
Oh, well, that we've got great fans here in Clarksville, and I personally don't control our Twitter account. My players don't control our Twitter account, so you know how it is. It's just it's fans, and it's our administration, and it's people at the university. They're just all in. They're totally in. So I love it. I think it brings great media publicity and attention to women's basketball and what we're doing here in Clarksville, Tennessee. So we love it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. We're just trying to publicize our teams the best way we can. So I definitely look forward to the future conversations with all those fans, and look forward to what you guys do on the court here in the coming week with a couple road games. And I know you got to get to practice, so we'll let you go. But thank you so much for joining us.
No worries, guys. Have a great one. We'll be tuning in to you. Thank y'all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
We are back. The ASUN Gameday Podcast. And again, I am Kendra Watkins, filling in for Jordan Griffitt, here with William Hall, Mike DeVader, ASUN Gameday Podcast. Just finished an interview with Coach Brittany Young, Austin Peay, and wish I would have been part of that interview. But what were some of the takeaways from that, just before we get into our power rankings?
Well, speaking of power rankings, my biggest takeaway was Mike. We need to check in and see what your stock is doing in Stashville right now. I mean,
Yeah,
That's
man.
my biggest concern right
It's
now.
not about my stock. It's about ASUN stock.
I don't know.
I don't
man.
know. I don't know.
Because
I don't
we might
know.
have to ride separate cars.
Yeah,
We might have to ride separate cars.
It's like big baller brand. I ain't never lost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that just overall, I think that's their defense, and that's one thing that they key on. She talked about, after that the break of non-conference coming into conference play, get things going. They're heading in the right direction, and again, they're coming into some good matchups this week. In that Eastern Kentucky game of the week on the women's basketball side, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I think you can definitely tell that they're really excited to be here in the ASUN. I think they're excited to be able to play the teams that we have and have a variety of different challenges. And I was really impressed with the fact that she comes in almost every day and challenges her team as well. I mean, she talked about how they'd have team meetings or team gatherings at practice, and she'd literally ask him, what kind of team are we today?
Mm-hmm.
So she talked about bringing the mindset of what kind of team we are. We spoke about the defensive effort that they bring every day, or try to bring to the best of their abilities, and to be able to have a connection like that with every one of your players, and to make sure that they bring that defensive mentality and attack every day, one day at a time. That's a great thing, and she's doing really well in just her second season with the team. So to be able to see that she has such a big buy-in, not only from her team, but apparently the entire fan base, because we ruffled up some feathers there, and that's exciting, because that means we're doing good on the podcast. Ratings are doing well, and people are excited to see what we have to say, and they love their Governor basketball, so that's even more impressive.
Series down there in Stashville, so yeah, separate cars. When we take that trip, separate cars, or I'll walk. Either or.
That might be worse.
Nah, I'm cool with walking. But let's get into it, because it is now time for the power ranking. So we'll start with men's basketball. William, go ahead.
Yeah, they're available on Twitter if you would like to see all 7. So I'm not gonna just, because Queens is back in it. North Alabama makes their first appearance of the season because they earned it. Let's talk about the top 2 right now. I'm just going, because I heard some feedback, and I welcome the feedback. I like the discourse.
See the smoke and
Yeah.
mirrors, everybody's talking about me, and then lo and behold,
I
there's
mean,
some
hey,
craziness.
right now,
Trouble in paradise. Go ahead.
it's no trouble. There's no trouble.
No
Look,
trouble. Okay.
there's no, not to be. I don't think there's any trouble. They're both 9-1. You got 2 teams that are 9-1. They got one loss. One team lost on the deep 3 in North Florida that we talked about. The other team lost on the road to Eastern Kentucky, the team that most would say they're the 3rd best team. Okay, that's fine. Kennesaw State did beat Eastern Kentucky on their home floor, but they did beat them. So right now, no disrespect to Liberty, I think everybody here, everybody everywhere knows what Liberty is about. They know what Darius McGee is about. They got 3 ASUN championships in the last 4 years, so that's not a question. But I think for this season, right now,
At this moment,
you got to put some respect on Kennesaw State's name. That's all I'm saying. At this moment. And we'll get to February 16th. If it happens and they're both tied and we get to that game on February 16th, we can figure it out then. And we can, or if something happens before then, things may change. But right now, in this moment, I think they're the best team and they're number 1.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of perspective and not necessarily.
Oh, so do you disagree?
No, I'm just trying to say
curious.
that we haven't said it yet, and we normally have to say that. Just a friendly reminder that these are not the standings.
yes.
However, like you said, they are the standings because they're at the top.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really work on your end, because I have to usually defend myself with that little sticker on the box that I have, just to make sure that there's a warning label for everyone. But no, I think it's really important to understand that you're not necessarily saying that those 2 teams are better than one another. It's just how they're playing right now as a collective unit, what they've done in the past, what they have going on. And, of course, either one of them could do great things and take the other and separate themselves. But
I am saying it better right now.
but right now, how they're playing right now.
Yeah, they're to me they're better right now.
I know.
No doubt. I just wanted to be known that is what I'm saying. Right now,
that's where someone else would be like, well, what about us? Well, I know you're playing really well right now, but they're doing extraordinary things that right now in these power rankings put Kennesaw State above you.
Yeah, that's all. And it could change next week. Stay tuned Sunday, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
We got a pair of games in between, and that's why they play them. So.
That's why they play.
That's why they play the game.
So, all right. With that being said, on the women's basketball, what do you have, Mike?
All right, so we got another edition of the women's basketball power rankings after the pair of games last week. Starting from the bottom, we got number 7, Jacksonville State, back in the rankings.
Okay.
Bellarmine had to get knocked off there after their performance against FGCU. Jacksonville State's won a couple games in a row. They move up to 7. Thought about Kennesaw State. Really thought about dropping them below Jacksonville State, but I think they had a little leeway in the last week edition of the power rankings, but they dropped to 6 after that surprising loss at home last week. Eastern Kentucky's at 5. Austin P is still at number 4, but they're looking to get into the top 3 with a couple big games, including the game of the week that we spoke about that's coming up on Saturday. Liberty and Lipscomb have flip positions. Lipscomb hosted Liberty. Liberty came out on top of that, and they've won 5 straight games. So as we kind of spoke about a little bit ago, Liberty and FGCU are 1-2, just like they have been in the most recent history of the league in basketball. Liberty kind of struggled recently to start the conference season, but they could be hitting their stride right now. They're 5 games in a row on the winning streak, and they're at number 2. Everybody's looking up at FGCU, but I think it could potentially be a little closer than it has been in the past, and we'll see what happens.
Well, just tell me with these teams, because I'm looking at your power ranking. I kind of feel what you were saying about Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State. I do see that. I'm so excited for this weekend matchup between Austin P and Eastern Kentucky. Liberty, FGCU. I know that's been a common thread since I've been here, since Liberty's come over into the conference. Just tell me, how close do you think that is? Just tell me, because I know we always you say that there's a wide gap, and I know Willie touched on it. Feel like it's getting really, really close.
I mean,
because that game could have went either way. I mean, maybe a free throw here, a free throw there. We're not even talking about overtime.
Right.
And I understand that Liberty tends to play really good in their home arena.
Okay.
FGCU has a good reputation wherever they go because they want to play their brand of basketball. It doesn't matter where you play because they're going to stand behind that line and shoot from wherever they want in any gym. Doesn't matter if it's inside, outside, in the cold weather. It doesn't matter to them. So they can play anywhere. It's just a matter of, can these other teams figure out a way to stop their momentum? Because FGCU is not that they're not confident all the time. It's just when they feel like they're better than you, they really try to put it on the court and try to play, I think, more of a mental game with you. And we talked about this early in the season when they were undefeated and everybody else was trying to chase them down. Is I don't know if it's still necessarily all about basketball with trying to catch them or trying to upset them or play your best game. I think some of these teams have to get over the jersey aspect, knowing that, man, I've watched this team win time after time after time. Here they are going to the NCAA tournament again. But we got to find out who in our league can kind of step up to the plate and go, well, we saw it happen once. Let me try this and see if that mindset can change a little bit to see if they kind of can gain some confidence to line up against FGCU and almost not be beaten before the first tip-off.
Oh, so it's like a Iron Mike Tyson thing where it's like you want to win coming into the arena or coming into the ring. I see what you're saying. So it's like an intimidation thing. So you want them to get past that fear of the name on the jersey. And
I mean, I never know how these teams are thinking, but
yeah.
Me being here not a whole long time, but my second year, I kind of see that as well, because all I know is FGCU had dominance last year. They started the way they did this year. They lost the game. They came back and dominated. Are they going to have the same mindset the rest of the year where they're literally going to intimidate the rest of the teams before the opening whistle, and then all of a sudden it's 21-5 because they just hit 4 threes in a row. You turned it over 3 times, and you're calling timeout because you're down by 15 in the first quarter. I mean, once they start rolling and they actually hit a lot of their threes that they're throwing up, because obviously they're tops in the country in three-point attempts, and they always have been. And I mean, it's almost like a tsunami coming at you. If you're not prepared for that run to try to fight back with them, you could be done at halftime and not even know it.
Raining threes.
Have we seen that before?
I might have hit the hashtag and typed it a couple times. So, yeah. I feel what you're saying. And, yeah. So, man, I'm so excited for game day coming up this Thursday. I know just last week we had a few game winners. Like it was really busy.
Yeah.
A lot of tweets went out. It was a lot of game winners, and that's the one thing I love about ASUN basketball this year. Like there's a lot of storylines.
Yeah, because I mean everything that we laid out and that we're feeling, like I said, even with the power rankings, it could all change with the games tomorrow. It just because I think everybody can go out there and give you that game and give it to you, and then you're looking up and you're like, oh, what happened? Oh, like you were saying, Mike, that upset, that score that you weren't expecting to happen, and then it's happening, and then turn everything on its head.
We saw that last week.
But consistency.
There we go. All right, well, we're about to close out, but before we do that, I just wanted to get into the ASUN previews. What do we have going on this week in ASUN?
Oh yeah, this week, tomorrow, baseball preseason awards are being released, so that's exciting. It's almost that time for baseball season to get back going. And speaking of new seasons, on Saturday, men's lacrosse gets started. So our second year with the return of the sport of men's lacrosse. So we've expanded, got more teams going this year. So it's here. The spring is coming fast. I mean, everything's about going. I mean, we're in the tennis season. Softball's going to be starting next week. Women's lacrosse is coming. I mean, and then ASUN Madness. So
ASUN Madness.
I mean, this is what you want. This is what you want.
I can't believe we're in February already. I mean, signing day was today. Being here on Wednesday, and the second round of signing day for football teams around the league, and now we're looking dead in the face of spring sports already.
I'm excited.
You gotta be. You can't be anything but excited.
Yes, and I know one thing that we normally do here on the Game Day Podcast. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. The trivia.
Uh-huh.
We're going to give you guys a week off for trivia because I know that's like a Jordan thing, and I don't want to take any of his points because it looks like right now between William and Jordan, like, Mike, they're on your head.
Hey, you're not going to take any from me because I won the very first one, and I should have retired apparently because I can't even understand to follow my own brain, and I picked the wrong one after I ever had the right answer.
But silver lining, you're consistent,
but not consistently hot, and that's what you don't want to be consistently cold.
Yeah, you consistently got this goose egg. That's what you're
consistent. You know, you're consistent. But I mean, you filled in, doing a great job. You know, excellent. Now, there's a chair there for whenever you want it.
I don't know, man. If you guys do a live thing, because I would love to get in here and just talk.
So only if it's live, though.
Only.
That's your standard. You like that?
Live.
That's what we're gonna.
I give my best work live. Like I want to talk about. Like I want to do my top 5. Like who's my top 5 point guards? Who's my top 5 shooting guards?
What's stopping you from doing that though? Don't say that then. Don't blame it on not being live. Like this, you know. But there is a chair. You can get another mic whenever you're ready. Because like you said, you're usually in here. Like we're not. Let's not act like we're just in some huge building and we don't know where you are. So you know, secret behind the camera now, sort of, kind of. But yeah, so you know, I enjoyed it. You got to come back.
All right. I might do that. I might take you up on that offer. But again, this has been another installment of the ASUN Game Day Podcast. Myself, Kendra Watkins, again, filling in for Jordan Griffitt, Mike DeVader, William Hall, and we got a lot of action going on this week. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. I mean, we're everywhere. We're on YouTube, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Spotify, we're on what is it? Apple,
All that.
Apple Podcast, all that.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
There we go. That's
there we
it.
go. So wherever you get your podcast, there we go. See you guys next week. We're out.
Peace.